My name was Ahmed. I was a doctor, a healer, a respected figure in my community. Yet beneath my white coat, I wore a heavy veil of emptiness, struggling to bridge the chasm between my duties and the questions gnawing at my soul. For years, I believed I was serving a higher purpose. But deep down, I felt nothing. Just a hollow echo in the silence of my prayers. And then something changed. I nearly died. In the ICU, as machines beeped and shadows loomed, I slipped into darkness. It was in that suffocating void that I encountered a presence greater than my understanding. Jesus. His voice cut through the despair like a beam of light. He called my name, illuminating truths I had long buried beneath cultural expectations and religious doctrine. In that frail moment between life and death, I realized I had been tethered to a belief system that kept my spirit shackled in fear. What I saw shattered my perception of reality. I was shown the illusion that encased my existence, a spiritual war hidden in plain sight. This conflict wasn't just in my heart, it resonates across the globe, a silent battle between light and darkness. Yet, those I loved, my family and my colleagues, wouldn't understand. They would label me a heretic, an outcast, for daring to believe there was more beyond the limits of our traditions. When I awoke, everything felt different. My heart ached to share my experience, but the weight of rejection loomed, threatening to silence my truth forever. The journey to rediscover my faith became a clandestine search for connection and understanding. I explored the scriptures, joined secret gatherings, and found others like me, broken souls seeking redemption. It was both terrifying and liberating, each step steeped in the courage I didn't know I possessed. Today, I stand at a precipice. A choice to make. To hide in the shadows, or to embrace the light I found in that moment of divine revelation. If you've ever questioned everything you thought you knew, you're not alone. There's a freedom waiting for those brave enough to seek it. Before we dive deeper into my journey, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? And what time is it there? Your voice matters. And if you love Jesus, if you thirst for truth and transformation, subscribe now to Truth from Beyond. What I'm about to share is not merely a testimony, but a world-altering revelation that could change the fabric of your reality. In the bustling multicultural environment of a hospital in Texas, I found myself navigating the complex web of life and death as a physician. My name is Dr. Samir Al-Muhammad, and for years I dedicated myself to healing others. I embraced my role with pride and discipline, yet there lingered an unsettling emptiness inside me. My career as a doctor often left me questioning not just the physical ailments I treated, but the spiritual implications that underlay the suffering I witnessed daily. In a society rich in religious diversity, I often felt the weight of a dominant Christian influence, a sensation that both intrigued and conflicted me. As I tended to my patients, I couldn't shake the sense that many around me were trapped, caught in a cycle of fear that skewed their perceptions of faith and healing. One fateful night, while working late in the intensive care unit, I experienced a moment that altered my understanding of everything. The steady beeping of monitors surrounded me, a constant reminder of the fragile line between life and death. I was treating a critically ill patient when I suddenly felt lightheaded. As I focused on his condition, my vision blurred, and the world melted away into darkness. It was as though I was suspended in time, embraced by a void that felt both frightening and liberating. In that darkness, a brilliant light appeared, growing ever closer until it enveloped me in its warmth. And then, standing before me, was Jesus. His presence radiated love, compassion, and an understanding that cut through my soul. Samir. He called to me, and in that moment, the heaviness in my heart began to lift. As he spoke, I felt a flood of revelations wash over me, truths that had remained obscured in my consciousness. Jesus showed me the hidden agendas woven into the fabric of our society, how the elite manipulate the narratives of faith for their own gain, perpetuating division and deception. I was allowed to witness the spiritual war that raged not only within myself but in the hearts of many others. The urgency of this message compelled me to confront the reality that the pain and suffering I encountered every day were inextricably linked to deeper societal issues. What I saw was staggering. I recognized how fear of questioning our beliefs kept people shackled, unable to see the healing that lay beyond the rigid structures of tradition. The manipulation of faith was a weapon wielded by those in power, designed to maintain control over the masses. I could see how countless souls wandered in darkness, craving a connection to something more profound than the practices they clung to. My heart raced with urgency as I understood that my role as a healer extended beyond the physical realm. As a physician, I had always aimed to heal the body, yet I now realized that true healing required addressing the spirit as well. As the light around Jesus began to dim, my consciousness was pulled back to the ICU, where I awoke in a cold sweat. Shaken yet transcended, I looked around the room, acutely aware of the gravity of what I had just experienced. I felt renewed and invigorated, but the challenges ahead felt monumental. I understood that sharing this revelation might invite skepticism or even hostility, particularly from those who could not see beyond their conditioning. The idea of expressing my encounter terrified me. What if my patients, colleagues, and family rejected me? The fear of estrangement weighed heavily, yet I recognized that to remain silent would be to allow the very deception I had seen to fester unchecked. Driven by a newfound conviction, I realized it was my mission to awaken those around me, to reveal the truth that Jesus had shown me. I knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with risks, but I felt an indelible sense of purpose propelling me forward. I began to seek out others who had felt the stirrings of doubt or discontent, sharing the truths I had discovered, and inviting them to explore a deeper understanding of faith. As I spoke of love and connection, I felt the spiritual war becoming a conscious battle for hearts and minds, a fight worth engaging in for the sake of truth and liberation. The path was daunting, but as I stepped into this new chapter of my life, I felt a surge of hope and determination, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. As I navigated the busy corridors of the hospital, I felt the weight of my responsibilities pressing down on me. My name is Ahmed, a 35-year-old Muslim doctor, and while I was respected in my community for my medical expertise, a profound sense of emotional isolation plagued me. I had dedicated my life to healing others, yet despite the countless lives I touched, I often felt an immense emptiness within myself. The more I excelled in my profession, the more I sensed a yearning for a deeper spiritual connection, a connection that remained elusive amidst my rigorous adherence to religious duties. Each day I would don my white coat and step into my role, but the familiar bustle of the hospital began to feel like a performative act rather than a fulfilling vocation. My colleagues and patients relied on me, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something essential was missing. While I shared in the joys and sorrows of their lives, I found myself grappling with an internal struggle that felt increasingly consuming. I longed for a spiritual awakening that could help me break free from the constraints of my upbringing, but the fear of questioning my beliefs held me captive. One fateful evening, as I prepared for another long shift in the ICU, the weight of my doubts became unbearable. I stepped into a quiet room to gather my thoughts and pray, hoping to find some clarity. It was then that I experienced what felt like a near-death experience. The fluorescent lights flickered, and I suddenly felt dizzy, slipping into a state of unconsciousness. During that suspended moment, I was enveloped in darkness, an abyss where time lost its meaning, and I felt utterly untethered. Then, from the depths of that void, a breathtaking light emerged, drawing me toward it. As the brilliance enveloped me, I saw Jesus, his presence radiating love and warmth. "Ahmed," he said, calling my name with an authority that echoed deep within my soul. In that encounter, revelations began to unfold before me like a series of brilliant lights illuminating hidden truths. Jesus revealed to me the deception that had long obscured my understanding of spirituality, the ways in which the elite manipulate faith to serve their interests, weaving a hidden agenda that keeps people divided and fearful. I was shown how societal structures often serve to isolate individuals from genuine connection, perpetuating a cycle of spiritual war that inhibits personal awakening. The gravity of these revelations left me in awe. How could I have been blind to such truths? As I floated in this miraculous encounter, Jesus guided me through the complexities of faith and humanity, illuminating the paths that so many of us fail to see. I realized that the spiritual connection we all crave is often buried beneath layers of fear, ritual, and obligation. I felt a conviction swell within me, the understanding that my own journey toward awakening was not just personal, but a calling to help others navigate the same struggles. When I regained consciousness in that hospital room, I was transformed. The longing for deeper meaning surged inside me, and I knew I could no longer remain silent. I had to be a voice for the truth I had encountered, sharing the revelations of love and connection that Jesus bestowed upon me, even if it meant risking the very relationships that had been my foundation for so long. As I knelt in prayer, the familiar words of devotion rolled off my tongue, yet an unsettling void filled my heart. My name is Ahmed Farouk, a 35-year-old doctor in Texas, respected for my medical expertise but deeply troubled by an inner conflict that had been brewing for years. Each prayer that once brought me comfort now felt like a ritual that highlighted my disconnection from my faith and culture. The weight of expectation pressed heavily upon me, and as I closed my eyes, the darkness creeping into my consciousness seemed to echo my growing doubts. I found myself grappling with questions that lingered just beneath the surface, questions that challenged the validity of everything I had been taught. Night after night, I was tormented by vivid nightmares, visions of turmoil and disconnection that left me gasping for breath. I would awaken in cold sweats, heart racing, the images replaying in a relentless cycle. Each dream painted a stark picture of my struggles, of a community I felt alienated from. My identity as a Muslim felt increasingly at odds with my yearning for something deeper, something more profound than the rituals I'd practiced. I could feel a spiritual war raging within me, a battle between the traditions I had followed and the truths I longed to uncover. One evening, after a particularly unsettling prayer, I felt a compulsion to seek solace in the quiet of my own thoughts. I closed my eyes, hoping to erase the chaos swirling in my mind, and then, unexpectedly, I found myself slipping into a void once more. In that absence of light, I felt fear take hold, but just as quickly, a brilliant light pierced through the darkness. As the light enveloped me, I was met with the radiant presence of Jesus, his figure shining with warmth and compassion. "Ahmed." He called my name softly, and I felt a flood of understanding wash over me, illuminating the shadows in my heart. In that moment, Jesus revealed the hidden agendas that often manipulate faith, laying bare the deceptions of power and control that kept people bound in fear. I witnessed how the elite orchestrated division among communities, perpetuating suffering and misunderstanding, often using religion as a tool for their gain. The truths I had long overlooked came crashing down upon me, igniting an urgent need to acknowledge the profound manipulation that had obscured my understanding of spirituality. I could see the societal structures built on deception, designed to maintain power at the expense of genuine connection. As the light around Jesus grew, I felt my previous commitments and fears falling away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace and purpose. He showed me that the spiritual awakening I sought was not just for myself. It was a call to awaken others who were also trapped in the currents of doubt and fear, just like I had been. The realization settled in my soul. Like a weight lifted, there was a responsibility that came with this knowledge. A calling to share what I had learned, to confront the truths of our existence, and to embrace the transformative power of unconditional love. But as I began to step into this mission, the fear of losing my community still loomed large, challenging me to rise in faith despite the potential consequences. As I returned to my consciousness in the small confines of my room, the reality of my newfound mission pressed heavily on my heart, and I knew I was only at the beginning of a dangerous journey toward truth and awakening. The chaos of the intensive care unit was all-consuming. My name is Ahmed Saeed, and as a doctor, I faced countless medical emergencies. Yet nothing could have prepared me for the crisis that led me to this moment. It all started with a sudden collapse of a patient who had seemingly been stable. As I rushed to attend to her, I felt an impending sense of doom wash over me. The tension in the air thickened until it suffocated me. I fought to keep my focus, but just as I began to take control of the situation, I felt the world around me slip away. I fainted, plunging into darkness, a vast void that felt heavy, almost suffocating. As I drifted deeper into unconsciousness, I experienced a profound sense of detachment. I was no longer tethered to my body. It was an unsettling sensation, but as fear crept in, a light appeared, breaking the all-consuming darkness. Drawing nearer, the light took form, and I realized I was in the presence of Jesus. He stood with warmth and compassion, an aura of peace enveloping him that instantly calmed my racing heart. Ahmed. He called my name, and in that singular moment, everything changed. I felt layers of doubt and confusion peel away, the burdens of my life falling to the ground like autumn leaves. While standing before him, I began to understand the broader context of our existence, the spiritual war that exists not just within myself, but throughout humanity. Jesus revealed to me the hidden agendas that plague society, orchestrated by the elite, who manipulate our fears and beliefs for their gain. I could see clearly how these forces shaped our reality, fostering division through deception and keeping people from experiencing the full breadth of their spiritual potential. With each revelation, the weight of truth pressed down on me. I could see how the struggles I had faced were reflected in the lives of countless others, people wrestling with their faith, torn between tradition and the restlessness of their questioning souls. This ongoing conflict reflected the larger societal issues we all faced, wars and divisions that stemmed from an inability to connect with one another on a fundamental human level. Jesus urged me to consider the power of awakening, to rise above the noise and fear, to embrace a truth that could liberate rather than bind. As I began to comprehend the far-reaching implications of this revelation, my consciousness started to fade, and I felt the gravitational pull back to my physical form. Awaking in the ICU, disoriented yet filled with clarity, The chaos around me blurred momentarily as I struggled to process what had just occurred. I knew in my heart that this encounter was both a calling and a revelation, urging me to confront the spiritual war surrounding us. I was compelled to share my truth, to warn others about the deception that kept them shackled, and to be a beacon in a world desperately in need of awakening. With a newfound conviction, I was ready to navigate the complexities ahead, determined to shine a light on the path for those still lost in the shadows. As I regained consciousness in the ICU, the sterile scent of antiseptics and the rhythmic beeping of machines surrounded me. My name is Ahmed Farouk, a 35-year-old Muslim doctor, and for years I had devoted my life to healing others. Yet, in the wake of my encounter with Jesus, everything had changed. The revelations I experienced during my near-death episode pulverized the foundations of my faith and transformed my understanding of spirituality. I felt lighter, yet burdened by the task ahead. How could I convey what I'd learned when the truths I'd uncovered seemed so contrary to the traditions I'd upheld all my life? I first shared my experience with colleagues. I felt the weight of multiple eyes upon me as I recounted my vision, hoping they would comprehend the depths of what had unfolded during that dark moment. Instead of the understanding I craved, I was met with disbelief and cold dismissal. They labeled me a heretic, casting doubt over my qualifications, and suddenly the very people who once respected me turned their backs. The rejection cut deep, piercing through my heart like a dagger, leaving me grappling with an insatiable loneliness that threatened to overwhelm me. How had the pursuit of truth driven such a wedge between me and my community? Returning home, I tried to confide in my family, hoping they would embrace my awakening with open hearts, but their faces twisted in shock and anger as I recounted my encounter with Jesus, a figure they viewed through a lens of distrust. I saw their disappointment shine through. My father's voice trembled as he warned me that I was straying from the path laid out by our faith. In that moment, I felt the chasm widen. Guilt settled in my chest, a heavy anchor that reminded me of the bond I had severed in seeking my truth. How could I reconcile my newfound beliefs with the love I still felt for those I had grown up with? These feelings of spiritual conflict only deepened my loneliness. Nights were the hardest. Sleep eluded me as nightmares played out my fears, a constant reminder of my isolation. I wrestled with my guilt as I lay awake, silently questioning if revealing my experience was worth losing the people I cherished. Yet within this pain, I felt an urgency growing. I recognized the spiritual war not just raging within myself, but also enveloping those around me. Individuals trapped by their own beliefs, unable to see the truth that lay beyond the doctrines they had been taught. It struck me that if I did not share the revelation of love and awakening that Jesus had imparted, my silence would only contribute to the ongoing deception that plagued our communities. Amidst these turbulent emotions, I felt a pull toward outreach, a calling to find others who, like me, were yearning for deeper understanding. I sought solace in online forums and small gatherings where seekers shared their struggles, forming connections that transcended traditional boundaries. Through these interactions, I began to see how widespread the discontent and confusion were, how many felt lost in the shadows of dogma. As I listened to their stories of awakening and search for truth, I was reminded of the urgency that came with my own journey. The need to rise above the fear and isolation weighed heavily on my heart, urging me to embrace the mission to share this awakening, knowing full well that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, yet illuminated by the light of devotion and love I had found in Jesus. Driven by an insatiable quest for understanding, I found myself navigating the complexities of faith in a world that felt increasingly divided. My name is Ahmed Farouk, a 35-year-old Muslim doctor based in Texas. From a young age, I was taught the principles of my faith, and I dedicated myself to the healing of others. Yet, beneath the respect I commanded in my field, I felt an emotional isolation creeping in, fueled by questions that lingered just out of reach. The sense of emptiness was becoming harder to ignore, particularly as I began to notice the growing discontent around me, especially among the youth. In the quiet of my home, when the world outside dimmed, I began a secret exploration of Christianity, something I had been curious about since my encounter with Jesus. I immersed myself in videos and literature, cautiously consuming everything I could find. Each story added another layer to my understanding, igniting a flame of hope within my heart. I witnessed the powerful testimonies of those who had experienced their own awakenings, often leaving behind the very cultures and beliefs I had cherished. The insights were liberating, but with every revelation came a wave of fear regarding my own safety and acceptance in a community steeped in tradition. It was amidst this internal conflict that I stumbled upon a supportive community of ex-Muslims, people who had walked similar paths in their quest for truth. It felt like a lifeline, a safe space where I could express my thoughts without the fear of judgment. Sharing my doubts with others who understood my struggles fostered a sense of belonging that I hadn't felt in a long time. Together, we explored the deeper meanings of spirituality, the pain of disconnection from our respective backgrounds, and the realization that many of us had been victims of a larger deception orchestrated by the elite. As I engaged in discussions about faith, the hidden agendas behind the manipulation of spiritual beliefs became clearer. The more I learned, the more alarmed I became at how systematically society is divided through fear. I witnessed how easily people can be led astray, caught in the trap of societal expectations that dictate their identities. The truth revealed in these conversations was eye-opening. I realized that many of the barriers keeping us apart were built by those who sought to control us. I felt a growing sense of urgency to spread this message, to encourage others to break free from the constraints that had been imposed upon them. However, I remained painfully aware of the risk involved. Each time I logged into those online forums or connected with others, a voice in my head whispered warnings about what I stood to lose. If my family or community discovered my doubts, the repercussions could be severe. The fear of being labeled a heretic haunted me, yet the desire to communicate the love and awakening I had found kept pushing me forward. I knew that if I stayed silent, I would deny not only myself, but those still searching for their truth. In the midst of this spiritual war, the decision to stand up and share my journey felt inevitable. Embracing the truth became my calling, one that I intended to fulfill, regardless of the consequences that awaited me. In the quiet intensity of the ICU, the monotony of machines was interrupted only by the soft whispers of nurses and the occasional call for assistance. My name is Ahmed Farouk, and as a dedicated doctor, I had devoted my life to healing others. Years of training and experience couldn't prepare me for the unexpected event that would forever alter my path. I loved my profession, yet something inside me felt increasingly restless, a yearning for a deeper understanding of spirituality that conventional practice didn't seem to address. One fateful evening, amidst a particularly draining shift, I experienced a sudden medical emergency that jolted me out of my routine. As I rushed to assist a critically ill patient, an overwhelming wave of dizziness washed over me. I barely had time to comprehend what was happening before darkness enveloped me. I collapsed, plunging into an abyss, slipping away from conscious thought. In that void, I felt stripped of my earthly concerns, leaving me open to something far beyond my comprehension. As I drifted deeper into this state, a radiant light emerged from the darkness, illuminating every corner of my soul. Standing before me was Jesus, a figure of unconditional love and understanding. His presence radiated warmth, and as he called my name, profound serenity filled the space around us. "Ahmed," he said gently, "you've been chosen to awaken." In that moment, I realized this was not just a personal experience, it was a divine calling. Jesus began to unveil the hidden truths that had long eluded me, revealing how organized faith can sometimes mask a hidden agenda designed to control and manipulate. The revelation was staggering. I witnessed the workings of a spiritual war that permeated our society, an intricate deception orchestrated by the elite to divide and conquer the hearts of humanity. I could see how fear and ignorance perpetuated cycles of pain and suffering, constraining our potential for true connection. Jesus illuminated the paths of those who sought the truth, emphasizing that it lay beyond rigid traditions and was instead rooted in love and acceptance. I sensed a deep urgency. The awakening he spoke of was essential not just for me, but for countless others struggling to navigate the turmoil of modern existence. Awakening from that transcendent experience, I found myself back in the ICU, forever changed. The weight of the truths unveiled pressed heavily on my heart. I could no longer stay silent, nor could I ignore the call to share what I had witnessed. Yet, fear gnawed at me. The prospect of rejection from my family and community loomed ominously. I grappled with the possibility of being branded a heretic for daring to question the faith I had long been a part of. But the love and truth I had encountered could not be contained. As I prepared to step into a role as a spiritual warrior, I felt both the fear of ostracization and the urgency to rise and speak, to inspire awakening in others, and to fight against the hidden agendas designed to keep our spirits shackled. As I stood in the shadows of my life, preparing to embrace the monumental decision that lay before me, I felt the gravity of my past weighing heavily on my heart. I'm Ahmed, a Muslim doctor in Texas, once anchored to the familiar structures of my community and faith. But after my encounter with Jesus in the ICU, where the profound revelation of truth unraveled the hidden agendas of my understanding, I knew that staying comfortable meant forsaking the awakening I had experienced. My life had been steeped in tradition, but now I was called to break free and forge a new path. Leaving my home felt like stepping into a great unknown, a leap into a void that both terrified and thrilled me. I understood that adopting a new identity symbolized my commitment to my newfound faith, a faith that could no longer be defined by the limitations of my previous beliefs. It was a decision that came with high stakes, as I was painfully aware of the potential repercussions. Family and community ties that once brought me joy now felt suffocating. The fear of rejection loomed large, yet the desire to embrace my calling was more potent than any fear I could conjure. In those early days, I sought out support from those who had traveled similar paths. I found solace in gatherings of others who had found the courage to leave behind their paths and embrace their spiritual journeys. They shared stories of awakening, a collective realization of the spiritual war that raged not just within them but across the world. We spoke of the manipulation we had faced, the deception woven through our beliefs by the elite, and the urgency to reclaim our truths. Each narrative exchange became a thread binding us together, illuminating a community dedicated to fostering spiritual freedom. As I embraced my new identity, I committed myself to sharing the message of Jesus, to become a messenger of the love and hope that had been bestowed upon me during my encounter. My purpose shifted from merely healing the physical body to nurturing the spirit, helping others find their way through the darkness of doubt and deception that so many experience. I delved deeper into Scripture, uncovering the transformative power of the revelations that had begun to reshape my understanding of faith, a faith that invited awakening rather than fear. With every conversation I had, I felt my own resolve strengthening. I wanted to inspire others to question the narratives that had held them captive, to shed light on the hidden truths that could spark their spiritual awakenings. It was a daunting task, and the weight of responsibility rested heavily on my shoulders. I recognized that some would dismiss my insights, viewing me as a traitor to the traditions I once upheld. Yet the truth was something that couldn't be ignored, and as I prepared to face the inevitable backlash, I steeled myself for the journey ahead, ready to fight for freedom and love in a world clouded by deception. Years have passed since that life-altering moment in the ICU, yet the echoes of my encounter with Jesus continue to resonate in every facet of my life. My name is Ahmed, and as a Muslim doctor devoted to healing, I once found solace in my career and my community. However, since experiencing the profound revelations that unraveled the hidden agendas plaguing society, I've embarked on a journey that has led me to a new understanding of faith and purpose. Now, I thrive in a diverse community that embraces individuals from all backgrounds, a world where I no longer feel isolated in my spiritual quest. In the years since my awakening, I've worked tirelessly to share my testimony with others. Each story I recount brings to light the spiritual war that takes place in the hearts of many, including my own. People come to me seeking understanding, looking for hope in a society rife with division and misunderstanding. I remind them that regardless of their past or beliefs, the love of Jesus transcends all barriers. It's powerful to witness so many souls awaken to the truth, realizing they too can break free from the chains of deception that have bound them for so long. Our community has grown stronger through shared experiences, and together we face the challenges the world thrusts upon us. Yet there's an ache in my heart that remains, a longing for reconciliation with my family, who still view my journey through a lens of disappointment and misunderstanding. Each day, I nurture the hope that they will come to understand my transformation and recognize the love that drives my new path. I often find myself caught between two worlds, the traditions I held dear and the truth that now guides me. The fear of rejection weighs heavily on my spirit, and though I have embraced my role as a spiritual warrior, the thought of being cast out still haunts my dreams. This internal conflict remains a constant reminder of what's at stake. As I engage with my community, I often reflect on the challenges facing us all. A world where misinformation spreads like wildfire, where the elite manipulate narratives to serve their own interests. The truths that I have uncovered reveal a dark reality. That increasing division in society fuels the spiritual war we must all confront. I feel an urgency to communicate these revelations, to encourage others to awaken to the threats that seek to suppress their faith and self-identity. It's a daunting task, but I believe that through understanding and compassion, we can collectively rise against the prevailing tides of deception. Every day is filled with the promise of connection and understanding, but the journey is fraught with emotional intensity. I find strength in prayer and in the shared stories of those around me, and in doing so, I endeavor to help others bridge the gap between their old beliefs and the new realities they can embrace. I remain hopeful that one day my family will see the truth I now hold dear, leading us toward healing and understanding once more. The path has been anything but easy. But with each breath, I'm reminded that awakening is not just a personal journey. It's a calling that beckons us all toward profound transformation and the eventual unification of hearts, even when the price seems steep. My life as a doctor had always revolved around healing, yet beneath the surface I felt an escalating emptiness that I couldn't ignore. I'm Ahmed, and at 35, I was well respected in the multicultural environment of a Texas hospital. In the midst of saving lives and comforting families, I was grappling with profound questions about my own existence. The more I focused on my career, the more I sensed a growing detachment from the spiritual dimensions of life. The religious rituals I followed felt increasingly like hollow practices lacking in genuine connection. One fateful night, in the middle of a chaotic shift, everything changed. A medical emergency struck, and as I rushed to respond, I found myself overwhelmed. The lights of the hospital began to blur, and suddenly my world faded into a dark void. In that overwhelming moment, I experienced what felt like a near-death experience. The absence of sound and light was suffocating at first, but that darkness soon transformed into an ethereal light, pulling me toward it. And then, there he was, Jesus. His presence radiated peace and understanding that I had never known before, washing over me like a warm wave. Ahmed. He spoke my name with clarity that pierced through the chaos in my mind. In that moment, revelations unfolded before me, unraveling truths that had remained hidden in the fabric of my life. Jesus revealed the complexities of a spiritual war that rages not only within individuals but within our society as a whole. I saw how the elite manipulate faith, creating a hidden agenda to foster division and maintain power over the masses. The weight of this truth was staggering. I understood that the deception I experienced in my community was part of a larger scheme, one that perpetuated fear and confusion. In that enlightening encounter, I witnessed the struggles of humanity, the wars, the social divisions that stemmed from misunderstandings, and the technology that often serves to isolate rather than connect. I realized how many people, including those I cared for, were unwittingly trapped in cycles that stifled their spiritual growth. The urgency of this message filled me with purpose. I recognized that my journey was not just for personal awakening. It was a calling to guide others toward the truth and help them navigate their own spiritual paths. As the light around Jesus began to fade, I felt myself being pulled back into my body, awakening in the ICU to the blaring monitors and muted voices around me. But I was different. It's as if I returned carrying a heavy yet enlightening burden. I knew I had to share what Jesus had revealed to me, to testify about the hidden truth that could liberate others from their own spiritual entrapments. However, the fear of rejection from my family and community gnawed at me constantly. How would they react to my transformation? Would I be able to bridge the gap between the life I had known and the path I was now compelled to follow? Determined to pursue this mission of awakening, I felt the faint stirrings of hope, a hope that I could inspire change, both within myself and in the hearts of those still wandering in darkness. Now that you've listened to my journey, I must ask you, have you ever stood at the edge of your beliefs, feeling the weight of tradition push against the whisper of truth that longs to be heard? In my darkest hour, I found Jesus, not just as a divine figure, but as a profound guide illuminating a reality woven into the very fabric of our existence. This isn't merely a personal saga, It's a clarion call for each of us to confront the silent spiritual war that rages within and around us. We are invited to awaken from the slumber of complacency and fear. The revelations I experienced in the ICU shattered my illusion of security. The realization that I was part of something much larger than myself, yet also part of a disheartening system designed to divide us. This is the truth. Fear keeps us clad in shadows, shackling us from experiencing the profound love and connection we all crave. Do you feel the urgency? This calling transcends our differences and beckons us to rise together as agents of truth and love in a world steeped in manipulation. I challenge you to reflect. Have you ever glimpsed the deeper truths hidden in your own experiences? The narratives that bind us are often woven with threads of doubt and confusion. I want to hear your stories. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Your voice matters in this conversation, and together, we can illuminate the path for others seeking connection and redemption. If this message has resonated with you, don't let this moment pass. Subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell, because what's coming next promises to deepen your understanding and empower your journey. Together, we will explore more testimonies that reveal the ongoing battle for our souls and the power of awakening. As I step into this new chapter, I invite you to join me. Together, we can forge a community rooted in truth and love, a beacon of hope in these tumultuous times. I'm Ahmed. Thank you for being part of this journey. Remember, the pursuit of truth is a journey that unfolds beyond the boundaries of our past. It's time we walk it together.